أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلتها سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم انفعني بما علمتني وعلمني ما ينفعني فزدني علما آمين يا رب العالمين. So we'll start from Surah Baqarah, ayah 16. Those are the ones who purchased error for guidance. So their transaction has brought no profit, nor were they guided. So it could be understood in the sense of trading, because when you trade, you give a good, you sell a good, and you get the money for the amount it's worth. So here, the hypocrites, they purchased error for guidance. So they had to, they purchased error. They got error instead of guidance. So whatever they got, whatever, the money, for example, you could say that what they got in return, they gave away the guidance and they got error in return. So so their transaction was profitless. It had no profit. So it's useless in this world, and in the hereafter they were not guided. They gave away their guidance, and what they got in return was error. So it's like, giving something so valuable, something so valuable, and getting almost nothing in return. So it's almost like that the hypocrites did exactly that they gave away their guidance that was given to them, that was right in front of them, but they gave it away just for error, just for misguidance, just so they could live the life they wanted to, just so they can have whatever they want in their life, because they didn't want to follow Islam. They didn't want to restrict and limitate themselves as Islam commands them. So they just gave away their whole guidance. So since they gave it away, gave it all away, they weren't guided. Their example is as the example of the one who kindled a fire. Then when it lighted all around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness, so they cannot see. So this example is like, when you light a fire, you put effort into it, right? You make effort, and then the light is there for some time, but it just suddenly goes away. So it's exactly like those hypocrites who did the profitless trade. It's like they worked, they 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 worked for some time. It's like they accepted it's like it leads back to the time of prophet, when some people accepted Islam. But when like they accepted Islam, they got the light, they got the guidance, but after some time they started having doubts. They started having, you know they started being doubtful of the commands of Islam. So they started getting further away from Islam. They started not following its commands. So it's like they got the light, they worked for it for some time, but then it suddenly went away because they started having doubts, and they never left in darkness. So they cannot see. So now they're deprived of the light that they first had, that they worked for first, but now it's not there anymore because they started having doubts. And Islam is not a religion in which you can have doubts. You cannot doubt Islam, and everything that Allah asks us to do, we should do it without any kind of doubt. We don't really need an explanation for every single one of his commands. He's our creator, our owner, and he isn't, he isn't meant to give us any kind of explanation for what he orders us. We are his subjects, and we're supposed to follow him no matter what, whatever it is. Allah gave order to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhis salam to sacrifice his son, but did he question that order? No, he didn't. He quit. And did Hazrat Ismail hesitate? None of them did. So his commands are supposed to be obeyed without any kind of explanation. But there are explanations for every single one of their commands, but we shouldn't be doubtful of the command that we have. we should just follow it right away, because when we start having doubts, we start questioning Islam and we start getting further away from it. We don't want to follow it, and and then we also become one of the example, the one who kindles a fire and then it lights it all around him. Allah takes away the lightness. So we don't want to get further away from Islam, and we don't want to be one of those kind of hypocrites. Ayah 18 is deaf, dumb, blind, so they will not return to the right path. So here, deaf means deaf, is someone who can't hear. Dumb is someone who can't understand or speak. Blind is someone who can't see. But here, hypocrites, they hear, they understand, they speak, and they can see. But when what they see, they hear the commands, they hear the commands that they have to follow. They hear Prophet telling them all the kind of command guidance. They see it. They see everyone, they see what's right. They see what's wrong. They see the truth. They hear the truth, but they don't follow it. They hear it, but they ignore it. They see it, but they ignore it. They know it all, but they just ignore it. So what's the point of having these senses when you're not gonna use them, when you're not gonna put them in use, when you're not gonna follow them? So deaf means they hear it, but they don't work, they don't work on what they hear. Blind, they see it, they see everyone else, every Muslim doing, limiting themselves, restricting themselves, worshiping just one God, Allah, and they don't. Although they know that hypocrites, they have the knowledge of Islam, right? Because they enter Islam and they call themselves Muslims and they get the knowledge of Islam. So they hear everything, they know everything, but they don't follow it. So they will not return to the right path because they've just blocked their hearts. They've just made a decision that no, although I know everything, I'm not going to do it. So they will not return to the right path because they're not willing to return to the right path. So they'll just stay on the astray path that they're on because they want to be so ignorant. They choose to be so ignorant. Or like a rainstorm from the sky wherein is darkness and thunder and lightning. They thrust their fingers in their ears against the thunderclaps for fear of death. And Allah is encompassing the disbelievers. So here it means that, rainstorm, we're in darkness. As you see these words, these are words these are pretty horrifying words, right? They're like pretty troubled words. When you imagine them, you're kind of scared. So it just means that a Muslim's life is not all, rainbows and sunshines. It's hard, because we limitate ourselves, we restrict ourselves so much because our Allah commands that. So we, as there's also a hadith that this world is a believer's prison and a disbeliever's paradise. So it's a prison because we can't do everything we want to. We cannot work on our desire because we're not sent to work on our desire. We're sent to obey Allah, right? So we can do whatever we want, but disbelievers do. They do whatever they want to. They commit all kind of sins because they don't follow Islam, so they don't have to restrict themselves, and that's the reason they don't follow Islam, because they don't want to restrict themselves. So, so here it just shows that a Muslim's life is full of restrictions, limitations. It's not easy to follow. A mu'min, a muttaqin, his life, he has to restrict himself so much, right? So when they enter the fold of Islam, the hypocrites, they see that, wow, you have to do this, you have to give up this, you have to give up, interest, you have to, that was the way of their earning, right? You have to give up lying, you have to give up, you have to give up slaves, like, you don't have to treat them like they're not humans. They have to give up so many things because that's what Islam commands us, and that's the fair way of dealing with life, right? But they wanted the unfair way. They wanted to get everything as just by saying we're superior and we want it, and they used to get everything from the like the unfair way, the wrong ways. So when they see that no, you have to give up this, you have to give up so much, they hesitate, right? They hesitate so much, and they hesitate, and then they know about the punishments. They know about the terrifying punishments that Allah will put them through if they don't follow those commands. But what they do is they put their fingers in their ears and just pretend like it's not gonna happen. They pretend like if they don't hear, if they don't know, they don't have to follow. but it's not how Islam works. You have to seek for the knowledge, for the guidance, and you have to follow it. Most people, they it's a sin when you know something and you don't follow it, right? And it's not a sin when you don't know something and you made a mistake, but it doesn't mean that you stop seeking for that knowledge. It doesn't mean you just want to do everything on your own, and you don't want to know the knowledge of Islam. So you will think that you're preventing it. You're putting, it's like, not literally, but you're putting fingers in your ears. You're trying to prevent from hearing what Allah commands, right? So you will not have to follow it. But that's wrong, because if that's really your intention, to not know the Quran, to not know the guidance that's been sent upon us, that's wrong. So the hypocrites used to do the same. They used to think that avoid the they can avoid, listening to Allah, Allah's commands. They could avoid death, that wouldn't come to them, that there is no hereafter. So they would just live their lives like it's never gonna end. They will give so much for the worldly life. They would be so tangled up in worldly troubles. They don't even care about what's there in the hereafter. They don't know what's coming for them in the hereafter. And the like day of the last day and the day of judgment, all of it is going to be horrifying for them. They'll have to go through the punishments that will come on the last day, when the world is about to end, and then the eternal punishment, that's the hellfire. The lightning almost snatches away their sight. Whenever it lights up for them, they walk therein. And when darkness comes upon them, they stand still. And if Allah will, He could have taken away their hearing and their sight. Certainly, Allah has power over all things. So here, the lightning almost snatches away their sight whenever it lights up for them. Lights here is Islam. It's the guidance that Islam gives us. So when they have the lightning, they have the light with them, and whenever they follow the light when they want to. Whenever whenever Islam is beneficial for them, they enter the fold of Islam. But when things start to get hard for the Muslims, they just stop. They don't follow it anymore. They're certainly not Muslims anymore. So I will give an example of the Muslims that accepted Islam in the 8th age, which was conquest of Makkah. When Prophet and the Muslims, they went and they conquered their homeland, right, which belonged to them before, but they were so tortured that they had to migrate. So when they finally were strong enough, and they were finally able to conquer it, they conquered it. And then the non-Muslims there, the Makkans, they were scared that there are a lot of people. They were scared that now they might be they might be under their power. They might be under their under there's they will have to follow them. They will have to they were just scared, and they wanted to be in the side which has the most power, so they could benefit from it financially, socially, in every possible way. They just wanted to be in the side which has the most power. And at that time, Muslims had the most power. So they entered Islam. Most of them, we're not sure who entered Islam in what intention, but most of them accepted Islam just so they could have that power, just so they could be on the side of the Muslims who had the power. Strong Muslims, right? They were strong, so they wanted to be strong. So they entered Islam at that time. And when they pretend they were Muslims, but then when Prophet passed away and when Abu Bakr's caliphate came, there were so many conflicts. There were false prophets. There was refusal of paying zakat. There was apostates, right? The one who gave up on Islam, the one who just gave up. They just converted to their own religion that was there before. Would you call it true faith? That wasn't true faith. So it was because when Prophet passed away, and now when they thought that, okay, so Muslims don't have much power right now anymore, so they decided to just give up on Islam and do whatever they want to. That was the lack of true faith. And then they started following the false Muslims. They started joining Musalama. That's also not true faith. That if their faith was so weak, because you can tell they joined Islam for the power, for the sake of power. And then they started they started refusing to pay zakat. That also means that they didn't want to, follow the limitations. Even if you're in Islam, you have to give zakat, right? But they didn't want to because what? They think they have everything on their own, and when they give it, they'll be in poverty, they will lose whatever they have. But that's not true, because whatever they have is from Allah, and whatever is taken away from them is from Allah. So if Allah has commanded us to give away whatever we get, because we don't get it. I mean, we do get it from our earnings, but if Allah will, we wouldn't get that. Even if we work hard, we wouldn't get that if Allah will. So they refused on so many things. It's like, they only joined Islam for the sake of power, and then when Islam was under threat, they decided to leave it. When Islam wasn't as strong, they decided to leave it. They started corrupting Islam. They started making so many of their own, changes. So this is what this verse means, that these are the hypocrites. They only they only are Muslims by name, and they only are Muslims when they want to be. They only are Muslims when it's very beneficial for them, and then they are not Muslim. They're certainly not Muslims. They're not suddenly following anything when it's not benefiting them. There are so many commands, there's so many restrictions, but they don't follow it because it doesn't benefit them, and that's not a true Muslim. That's not a Mu'min. So if Allah had will, He could have taken away their hearing and their sight. Certainly Allah has power over all things. So as I mentioned, Allah is capable of doing anything. So since their hearing, their sight wasn't of any use. They were not putting it. They were hearing, they were seeing, but they weren't putting it in under any use, right? It was just going to waste. Like, what's the point of you hearing and knowing stuff when you're not gonna follow it? You have all the knowledge in the world, the truth is right in front of you, but you just still choose to ignore it. So what was the point? If Allah, He willed, He could have just taken it away, because Allah is powerful. Allah is capable of everything. He gives life to the dead and death to the living. So He's capable. If He's capable of doing that, He's definitely capable of taking away their sight, their hearing. He's capable of everything we can't even imagine. He knows what we don't know. So he is the most powerful being in this universe. So He can do whatever He wants if He wills. So he has a reason behind everything that He does. So this is it for today, and everything that we covered today was of the hypocrites. Everything that we learned were of the hypocrites. So this is it, and we'll conclude it with the ending dua. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتوب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.